Dear listeners, journey back with us to jolly old July of 2014, when Sean and I originally recorded this, our second podcast. We have 5 other episodes in the editing process, but that process has been slow going. Now, as you enter the cool beginnings of winter, sit back and dream of warmer, brighter, more pleasant days. It's not Christmas in July per se, but it's almost July in Christmas. Enjoy. And now, your hosts, Sean Hastings, an independent filmmaker and screenwriter extraordinaire, Jonathan Solzbar, a writer, graphic designer, and voice actor. Together, these fine fellows form Cinema Filibuster.
And welcome to the Cinema Filibuster. I'm Jonathan Solzbach.
And I am still, in fact, Sean Hastings.
All right, Sean, what are we talking about on today's podcast?
Oh, well, this being the time of year it is when we as Americans like to celebrate our independence, or at least celebrate the first step we took toward our independence by barbecuing dead animals and throwing explosives around and blowing up small bits of our country. Oh. It is the 4th of July.
But we're not here to talk about the 4th of July, but rather a movie.
A movie based on a play called 1776, which, weirdly enough, is a musical comedy written about and considering the subject of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and all of the travails that it took to sign it. It's probably the events of about a year crammed down to the events of about 2 weeks. Leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence and what it took to get a consensus by all 13 colonies to in fact decide that Britain needed to go get stuffed.
Succinctly put, as only Sean could do.
Thank you.
So how in the world did you hear about this movie?
Well, I didn't hear about it until, I guess it was somewhere between 1989 and 1991. I can't place it exactly. My friend Doug Barry, who was he was a history major for a while, brought over the disc, or brought over the VHS tape that they had watched in class. And he said, this is a really great movie. I think you guys will really like it. And I looked at it and I thought, well, I saw William Daniels, and at the time, I knew William Daniels as Dr. Craig from St. Elsewhere and the voice of the Knight 2000 in Knight Rider. Sure, why not? He says it's a musical comedy about the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And I thought...
Sounds like a winner right there.
Oh, boy, it does. A musical comedy. Well, that's all I needed to do to waste an evening. So, all right, what the heck? We went and got food, came back, and it was me, him, and a couple of other people. 5 minutes into this show, I was in love with it, and by the end of it, it was my favorite musical comedy of all time, beating out Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes.
So, a musical comedy about the signing of the Declaration of Independence is your favorite musical of all time.
Very succinctly put, John.
Now, okay, so let's talk about this movie.
Okay,
see if we can figure out why that is.
Well, I mean, I've always been a history buff. I love history, and I guess gravitas is the right word, but the magnitude of some events in history that people don't appreciate. And this is one of those things that is always, when I would go to our local post office to mail something or, talk to a post person, on our way out the door, they had a giant blown up copy of the Declaration of Independence. And I would always stop at it and just, I try to read it. It was written in very tiny handwriting, and I would try to read as much of it as I could. And I just got to thinking, when this thing was signed, it was treason. They were basically telling the ruling body, we've had enough. We want to do this ourselves. In the words of Ben Franklin, never in the history of the world had anything been so stupidly or recklessly managed than this entire continent by the British Crown. And they didn't have the hindsight that we do. We look at it now out the window and we see a new world power and we think, well, of course they signed it. I mean, look what happened. They didn't know any of this. They were signing a piece of paper that more than likely was going to lead to them getting hung.
Okay, so as a movie, and admittedly...
As an event.
A comedy movie.
Yeah, that was kind of, woof, are you kidding about this? It's a nice compilation of history, and they went into the correspondence of these people, like the correspondence between John Adams and his wife, the correspondence between George Washington and the Congress, and a lot of the dialogue is based off of things that these people actually said and wrote.
Well, I saw this. You introduced it to me.
And you thought, and tell the truth, when you sat down to watch it, you were thinking exactly what I was the first time I saw it, weren't you?
I was looking for a way out.
Yeah.
I wanted to go home.
I thought
get hit by a car, any of the above.
I thought so. Because I was the same way.
But I do have to admit that the promise of what it was, as you pitched it to me, is like, this is so bizarre that
it is.
I have to at least see what it's like.
Right.
And I was pleasantly surprised. It was informative, as you said, and very entertaining. But by the end of the movie, the weight of what's going on kind of rings in.
Yeah.
And a lot of the hilarity, if you could use the word hilarity.
Oh, you can.
A lot of the
wacky
comedy has sort of simmered down, and they got into the nitty-gritty, and like, gee whiz, if this didn't happen, you and I wouldn't be here, our country would not be what it is today.
No.
This is a pretty good movie.
Yeah. And it shows you just how close we came.
All right, let's talk about it from the perspective of the cast and crew.
Okay.
So it was 1972, directed by Peter Hunt. I would say, from having seen it, that William Daniels' portrayal of John Adams, he's kind of the central character.
He is. He's basically the one who's really pushing it. Everybody, there's a good majority of people want it, but they're too scared of, British reprisal, and he's the one who stands up and, flicks the bird at them and says, no, it needs to be now.
Basically, you follow Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson around the film.
It is basically those three who are kind of the little triad. They're the Kirk, McCoy, and Spock of the film.
It's an interesting comparison because, I think that's fantastic. I agree with your thought there, John. I agree with it completely. You are correct, sir. Should we try this again next week, or? What do you like most about this movie?
Honestly, it's funny. And it is very funny. It's intelligently funny. It takes our own current, or at the time, in the early 70s, their current distrusts and dislikes of government and overlays it on top of the old government. And in a lot of ways, it probably has not changed much. We had a very bad vision of ourselves back then, and this film was good because it kind of showed us, hey, yeah, we're having some problems, but at heart, this is who we are, and we will eventually get out of it.
At heart, we all want to sing and tap our heels together.
We do!
All right, so tell me, it's a musical, so there's got to be music, right?
Oh, good music. If anybody locally ever does 1776, I'm your candidate to play any part you want because I've already got it memorized.
Any favorite songs?
Well, I like Yours, 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 which is the ongoing love song between John Adams and Abigail Adams. Their love story actually was a very true piece of American history, and their correspondence, they wrote to each other constantly, just daily.
Married people can be in love with each other?
Oh my gosh.
Is that what you're saying, John?
Oh my, this was, in fact, John and Abigail Adams is one of the great love stories of history. There was never a question in either one of their mind that they were the person that they were meant to spend the rest of their life with. And it's written throughout their correspondence. Some of the things he wrote to his wife would just, pull a tear out of your eye. You just read it and you walk away from it. Because I've seen some of this correspondence at the Huntington Museum in California. And just reading it, you're like, wow, he loved her. It's blatantly obvious. And of course, like I say, back to the original question, that the song, it's where they're singing back and forth to each other because, of course, she's in Braintree, Massachusetts, and he's in Philadelphia. And every once in a while, he breaks into this little song where she just kind of magically shows up, and it's their correspondence where he's asking, and he's, telling her all of his fears and everything. And it shows a different side of the man that is really poignant, and it shows, this incredible woman that he was married to.
Do you think that musical interlude, their romance, is probably your favorite part of the movie, or your favorite song, or
is it
too hard to
No, well, it is hard to pick because the song that I love listening to the most was a song that was sung by, and you'll have to help me with the actor who played Edward Rutledge. He was the delegate from South Carolina.
John Cullum.
John Cullum, yeah, he was also in Northern Exposure. He was the barkeep. He has one of the most impressive baritone voices I have ever heard.
He's the Molasses and Rum.
Molasses to Rum to Slaves, the Triangle Trade song, it's hard to listen to it, but it is absolutely, but it's good that it's hard to listen to because that's exactly was the truth. Although it wasn't an excuse, he was using it. One of the big themes of the film is slavery, and Thomas Jefferson was very anti-slavery, even though he owned some. He, of course, did release them. It was written into the original draft of the Declaration that the slaves would be freed in this new country, and of course the South groused about it. And one of the big opponents of it was Edward Rutledge from South Carolina. And when the North, in the film, started telling him, in fact, the quote was, "It's a stinking business, Mr. Rutledge, a stinking business," and he says, "Well, then what is that I smell coming down from the north? Could that be the pungent odor of hypocrisy?" Because the slave trade came out of Boston, and there was just as many people in the north making money off slaves as there was in the south. So trying to bring it up as an economic, this is just politics, it's economics as opposed to freedom, well, that, he still didn't have a leg to stand on. It's wrong. I don't care, just because they sell it doesn't make you right. But that was his point, and he sings the song "Molasses to Rum to Slaves," and it's a shocking song. I mean, especially back even in the 70s, because he's making all these slave references and stuff in it, and it's eerie, but his voice is just so commanding. I just love listening. It's when it starts and it's melodic before it gets into that stuff. Power. That song is just powerful.
When I realized that William Daniels was in a movie that was also a musical, I thought, I can't imagine William Daniels singing.
He's quite good. Yeah, I know. I was kind of like, Kit sang in a couple of episodes of Knight Rider, and I didn't really think much about it. But
my only familiarity with him was Boy Meets World. He played a principal.
Oh, the principal of John Adams High School.
Ah.
Yeah, I know. That always struck me about Boy Meets World.
See, I had no clue of the significance of that.
Right.
Yeah, so when I thought, that guy in a musical?
Feeney?
But of course he's much younger, so I looked at him like, is that? No. Could it?
I was much younger back then, too.
But as soon as I heard him speak, like, that's him. And now he's going to sing.
Now he's going to sing.
So you mentioned that if you were to ever play Benjamin Franklin.
I'd love to play Ben Franklin.
What would you think if there was a new production going on? And if you couldn't try out for it, but you were able to cast it.
Oh, my.
Who would you throw into the roles of Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson?
Well, weirdly enough, and a lot of people would hate me, but I'd probably have an all-star British cast. I would. There's so many great British actors. I mean, there's a lot of great, Broadway's filled with great actors. Honestly, I don't know enough Broadway actors. All the people I know are film. So I guess
then cast it with film.
Cast it with film actors? Oh gosh.
Who out there?
We're going to go un-PC, but John Adams would be Mel Gibson. Because tell me he wouldn't rock. I don't care what.
Sing at all? I know it's a big question for any actor.
It is
from Hollywood, but
I don't care. I still want him because he's.
Well, Russell Crowe was singing in was that?
Yes, he was.
I didn't see it, but I heard it was terrible. His part.
Hello there. My name is Russell Crowe. I'm singing. What do you think? No, he was okay. He was okay. I mean, is that,
Then you have Hugh Jackman, who apparently has a good set of pipes.
Yes, I do have a Hugh Jackman. Sorry, that's always a joke. No, Hugh Jackman. Thing is, Thomas Jefferson, though.
Would have to be you.
No, Thomas Jefferson's tall. No, Thomas Jefferson.
Sorry, I'm thinking Franklin.
Yeah, Ben Franklin. I would have to play Ben Franklin. Oh, I guess if I were going to.
Not everybody can come from Boston, John.
Not everybody can come from Boston, John. Well, see, I would play him as crotchety. He'd be like at the scene, where he comes running up, going, you should have heard what I suffered in there. Oh, I heard, John. I heard. I'd be, I heard. I'd be playing him gritted teeth. John, let someone else in Congress propose. No. Because Benjamin Franklin was truly one of the most brilliant people in history. He was a brilliant, brilliant man. And imagine if you were, constantly in a room full of, fifth graders, and having to just deal with them, and that's your only.
I would probably feel right at home.
I would feel right at home, but he would be. I would play him as someone who has always dealt with people who are not as smart as he is. I would constantly have him in a state of looking at people like, "What are you, an idiot? Oh, shut up! I'm tired. I have gout." Shut up. One of the great things about Howard Da Silva's performance as this kind of doddering old kind of fun guy is that when he at the end when he says, "We have no choice, John, the slavery clause has to go," and John Adams goes, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "It's a luxury we can't afford." And John goes, "A luxury, 500,000 souls in chains, and Dr. Franklin calls it a luxury. Maybe you should have walked out with the South." And he's going, "The issue here is independence. Maybe you have forgotten that fact, but I have not." And he throws down on him like, "Look, I don't want to give this up either, but we have to get this first, then we'll worry about that." They don't say this in the play, but John Adams said, because we have caved on slavery, this is a curse that is going to be revisited on us in 80 or 90 years. And 90, almost to the year, 90 years later, the Civil War, the first shot was fired at Fort Sumter.
So despite the frivolity and the heel tapping.
Heel tapping. Ooh, heel tapping though.
There's got to be a flub in every podcast,
there
right?
There does.
So despite all of that, the subject matter, even if it's handled in a silly way, does have weight to it.
A huge amount of weight because it's all real. It all happened.
And something you mentioned before we started was that this came out in 1972. Mm-hmm. And there were still political ramifications of this piece.
Oh yeah, there were things that mirrored this, movie in the.
And you said something that the President of the United States of America got involved with this?
That's correct, he did.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, the President of the United States, who will remain nameless at this point, was good friends with Jack Warner.
And Jack Warner was?
Jack Warner was the reason why Warner Brothers is called Warner Brothers. Jack Warner was one of the titans of the golden age of Hollywood. Like I say, Warner Brothers Films. And consequently, him and Richard Nixon were friends. And Richard Nixon got to see the film before it was released. Mm-hmm. And there's a song in the play called "Cool Considerate Men," and it's where all the conservatives are getting together saying, "We don't want to fight." And it's a song about them, why they have their position. We want to keep our stuff, and if we have a war and we lose it all, this could be bad. And if we win, we could lose it all because we don't know what kind of government we're going to get. So they really wanted things to stay the way they were. And it's a song, and one of the lyrics in the song is, "To the right, ever to the right, never to the left, always to the right." And it's obviously a shot at right-wing politics. Well, the president didn't care for that very much. I don't like them making us look bad. With Vietnam and everything, we already look pretty bad. And I talked to Dr. Kissinger, and he didn't like it either. "No, Dick, I didn't like it. You need to get rid of it." So Richard Nixon went to Jack Warner and said, "Jack, I love the movie, but get rid of that song." And Jack Warner, "Okay, sure, whatever." So, and a really, really nice musical number was excised from the theatrical release and was not even in the videotape version that I had. I did not know that song existed until in the mid-90s I found the original Broadway cast from 1970, which William Daniels was in. Most of the cast of the film they just basically lifted the cast out of the play and made the movie with them. So everybody that was in the movie was in the original play. But that song was in it, and I always wondered, what's going on? That's John Dickinson singing about it, and it's all of the conservative element, so I assumed it was something, but I didn't find out that story until I watched I got the DVD, which had that song put back in.
And that's the version that we watched.
That's the version that we watched, so, and I was watching the commentary on it, and that's where they talk about, that's where, of course, where I got the story of Tricky Dick and Jack Warner.
Interesting. There's so much drama. So much drama surrounding the actual events and then the film events. And here we are today, eating hot dogs and hamburgers.
And blowing up small pieces of our country with quarter sticks of dynamite.
Okay. Well, what are your closing thoughts on 1776?
Well,
would you endorse this film to anybody who hasn't? Okay, let me put the question this way.
What are you asking that question for? What do you think?
Here's a different question. Over here.
What do you think, folks? Do you think I would, if you walked up to me and said, "Hey, mister, is this a good movie?" What do you think I'm going to say? Sorry.
For whom would you recommend this film?
For whom? Do you live in the United States of America? Watch it. Okay. No, and I'm not kidding.
Well, the reason I asked that question is after I saw the film, there were a lot of things that I had learned from watching the film.
Yeah.
Which I probably touched on in history years ago.
But to be fair, it was not touched on with any kind of panache enough for you to remember it. So I'm not going to fault anybody there.
There were no songs, there was no video. It was just dry, boring text.
Yeah, I won't fault anybody for not learning anything in the public school. Of course, you weren't in public school. You were homeschooled, right?
That's true.
So I don't, and nothing against your mom. I'm sure she did a fine.
What are you saying about my mom?
My mother!
Anyway, I just thought it was a very interesting way, a very informative but a fun way to learn, which is, truth be told, if learning could be made fun, more people would like it.
Yeah, they really would. A related topic in terms of knowing where your country came from, knowing the laws that currently govern it. I was a couple of weeks ago. I had to do jury duty, and one of the defense attorney made the statement. I believe everyone here would agree with the concept that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Correct? And one girl raised her hand and said, "Yes, but if somebody's innocent, shouldn't they be able to prove it?" And
was she listening to the statement?
And I was sitting back and I thought, and it was just stunned me that somebody asked that question seriously. Because if you go to our legal system and peel all the garbage away, get down to the bottom that you cannot dig any deeper, there is the phrase, a person is innocent until they are proven guilty. That is what every tenet of our legal system is based. And she didn't know that. And granted, the fact that she didn't know it wouldn't make an idiot. It's still the way it is, and the fact that she doesn't know it doesn't. But to make the supposition that if somebody's innocent, they should be able to prove it, and it is so heinous if you think about if that were the case, that if somebody accused you something, it was your job to prove you didn't do it. You could use our legal system to hold anybody or anything hostage you wanted.
Wow.
If I wanted you out of the way, I think I had a $2,000 diamond ring that you stole. You got to prove you didn't take it. I might not even have had one, but all I have to do is say you took it, and the burden of proof is on you. If the burden of proof is on you to prove it, I don't have to do anything. I just have to sit here, the judge has to sit here, and we have to go, well, prove you didn't take it. You didn't take it, so there's no evidence one way or the other.
Whereas if I stole it, I should have it somewhere in my belongings.
Right. Well, if you're dumb, yeah, if you have it hidden somewhere where nobody can find it.
You think my son would be that stupid? Bring the journal all the way.
Stupid. You didn't, did you? You did. Take it easy.
Well, Indiana Jones.
Take it easy.
Anyway,
but yeah, but I was just shocked that somebody. I mean, you could tell the lawyer was looking at it like, you're out. If my guy has to prove to you that he didn't do this, there's no way. You can't do it. I don't know if she was just saying it to say something.
Maybe she didn't want to be on that jury.
No, she believed what she was saying, and it was a little. It was, I don't know, it was a little disconcerting that and I guess it shouldn't be. I guess I'm overreacting, but
Sit down, Sean.
Sit down, Sean. But it's, again, going back to 1776, I think it's not you don't have to learn everything about the country if you live in it, but
it's very helpful.
I appreciate so much. I appreciated the country anyway. I loved, freedom, even though I've never not had it, but I've seen what not having it is, and I don't want to not have it.
I cannot not have it.
I cannot not have it.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
so fundamental to our way of life, and for me, this film was an eye-opener to things, like I said, probably learned, but having them acted out, and admittedly with silly songs, it was more memorable, and when it was over, I thought, this would be a good film to show in schools.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. I wish I had seen it in school.
Because it's a movie, so half of the class already wants to watch it.
And when that movie was over, I only had to watch it 2 or 3 times, and I still can't name them all, but I can name at least one delegate from every state in the Second Continental Congress.
That's more than I can name.
Well, you never know. Who was the representative of Massachusetts?
I don't know.
John Adams.
See, I need to watch it again.
Yes, yeah. Well,
that's an excuse to watch it again.
That can be arranged.
Oh my.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh dear, as Patrick Troughton would say.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for 1776.
I think it does, for now.
So if you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave a comment. If you're listening on our podcast feed, also leave a comment.
Sure.
Thank you for listening, as always.
And if you really feel like it, leave a video response of you singing a song from 1776.
Right, just tag it Cinema Filibuster, and we guarantee we'll probably see it.
we'll probably, and if we see it, we might even broadcast it over the air.
As always, if you respond, leave a comment, we'll leaf through. We'll weed through the refuse and...
Weed? Refuse? What are you saying about these people?
We will look forward to the opportunity of sharing your words and your thoughts on the show.
Absolutely we will, because your thoughts and feelings are important. No, really, they are. No kidding.
All joking aside.
All joking aside.
All right, well, thank you again, and until next time, I am Jonathan Zolzbach.
And I am, in fact, Sean Hastings.
And we'll probably be who we are for a lot longer.
For at least until next time, anyway. I guess until later, color us gone.
Adios.
And now, the credits. Intro music by Henrik Dibb. Outro music by Matt Steiner. Show concept and creation by Sean Hastings and Jonathan Sulzbach. Find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and of course, cinemafilibuster.com. Leave a comment at any of those venues and we'll read it in a future episode. Thanks for listening.